This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Final hour OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Brian Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles, McLennan. Got a big hour. Mark Giordano later in the hour. CJ will join us here in a moment. Our TSN Hockey Insider, our best bets later in the hour. We'll get to something to chew on with CJ in just a moment.
And just for all the listeners, viewers, everybody in the media, very few, no one's a Leaf fan. They're all just impartial. They don't care who wins. But it's better for hockey, and it's better for their own. Everybody wants to see the Maple Leafs win. Like, for everyone's like, oh, the media is this, and that. Everybody wants, it's better for everyone. Everyone gets more clicks. Everyone reads more articles, watches on TV. It's better for everyone if they win.
Well, it's exactly. It's more entertaining. It's fresh.
You're right. This is a big market. But every local market, I'm in all of them, the beat writers, they are partial to the home team. They watch them every day. So if I go to Tampa, those writers, they sway Tampa. If I go to Florida, they sway Florida. I go to Edmonton, those guys are biased towards the Oilers. Like, it's just here, it's bigger, and it's loud, and that's what it is. Montreal in two languages.
Every single market, and here it is bigger. And my stance has been the same. I think we all collectively agree. Like, the players, they play the game. And then you react. Like, it doesn't matter. You hear, you build it up like they're going to win every year. It's like, it's irrelevant what people predict or project or whatever. The players, they play the games, and you react. And when they play well and they win, it's going to be very complimentary. It's going to be very positive analysis. When they play poorly and lose, it's going to be the opposite. That's the way it goes. My stance, I have a very, very different viewpoint than possibly both of you guys. I look at it from the fans' perspective.
Right.
I want them to win for the fans. That's why I want them to win. I want them to win so my dad, who's been going to games his whole life, can go down there and see them win a Stanley Cup. I want them. Saw my buddy Jim this morning, 73. He's like, I don't know if they're going to do it, man. Like, he's talking about him
in his
like,
lifetime.
I'm 73. That's what I want to happen.
Right.
Like, I don't have personal relationships with any of these players. I have nothing against any of them. Right. We don't operate in the shadows on this show. We don't talk about their personal lives or take jabs that are personal at any of these guys.
We only deal with what we see on the ice.
Exactly. Right. That's the reality. If you play great, your tires get pumped. If you play poorly, you're going to get chewed on this show.
Right.
You go play. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
But I want to see them win, not so that Matthews that'd be great. Good for them. That'd be awesome for those guys and MLSC and all that. Good for you, all of you.
Right.
But I want it for the fans and the people of Toronto who deserve it and have paid, they've paid their dues for a long time. And that's just the reality. And they're not alone. People in Vancouver putting their hands up saying, hey, don't forget about us.
Yeah.
We see you, right? We see you in Buffalo. We see, yes, there's a lot of different fan bases. And the reality is the Leafs, again, over the last 3 years, they've been in the second round twice, and like I said, the middle year, Matthews chasing 70 was as electric and magical as you can experience for an individual player in a season.
Right.
The last 3 years, I'd say there's 20, maybe 25 teams in the league that would do anything for the last 3 years that the Leafs had.
Sure.
Now, we know the teams that wouldn't accept that. Vegas wouldn't, Tampa wouldn't, Florida wouldn't, probably Colorado, Edmonton wouldn't. There's 6 or 7 you can look at and say, that wouldn't be good enough. Boston still wouldn't because of what they are and what they've represented. But there's 20 to 25 that would do anything for the last 3 years that the Leafs had.
Yep.
The reason why the last 3 years don't land is because of what happened the previous 3 years, which is what we discussed: Columbus, Montreal, Tampa, the Nick Paul game, all the contracts, the players that left, the people that came and went, and everything. It soured people.
Well,
it soured a lot of people.
And my biggest, and we don't have the answer because their last 2 home games were atrocious. Like I say, if they would have lost Sunday night 2-1 in double overtime, it's sad, it's awful, all of that, what we talked about. But we've been talking about, we might have a different view on certain players. As to, man, they left everything out there. Bob made a save in overtime, or, hey, Reinhart made a great play, all of that type of stuff. That wasn't the case.
Jamie,
in their own building, they got ran out of their own building twice.
And I think that's what comes across to the fan base, right or wrong, and you'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt that it's wrong. But when you're a fan and you go down to the building and watch that, and you watch just how monotone they are after the game, they give the impression that it doesn't mean that much to them. You know what I mean? That's what pisses fans off, where they see them and they play like that. They watch William Nylander, they watch the performances, and then after it's like execution, we got to learn from this, and next year we'll go get him. It gives the impression that it just, like McDavid, when people watched McDavid in Edmonton when they pulled the curtain back and saw him freak out last night or last year, they were like, that guy cares so much, and this means everything to him. And these guys do not give that impression. They don't.
Yeah.
They make it look like it's too easy to turn the page and say, we'll go get him next year. That's what it comes off as.
Here's Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider. CJ, you're around the team a lot, around the room, in the room. You were down there today. What you just heard from where do you stand on that, and what might you add to that?
Well, the good news about today is there was less talk about lessons learned, so it did feel different in that regard. I thought there was some emotion after the game. Tavares was emotional after the game, but I think these guys are shell-shocked a little bit too. And honestly, this is probably why we feel like we're on a repeat track. It's like this timeline. We end up talking about the same thing every year, but it feels like that's, if anything, a reason to want to see some change. And I realize all the complications with that. It's easy to throw it out as an idea right now, and it's another thing to live it and make your team better. But I feel like these guys don't have all the answers all the time. And to play so well in Game 6, I think that's the hardest part for me to get my mind around. Sandwiching those two losses with what you saw in Game 6 and how little they gave up and how structured they were and patient they were in the game, and then to get blown out the way they did. I mean, it's difficult. I don't know what you want. What do you want to hear in that point? Do you just want to hear someone angry? Like, what do you want to hear? I don't know if there's anything left to say when you lose 6-1 on home ice in Game 7 and people are throwing jerseys on the ice and beers and everything, and your year's over.
I don't know. Nathan McKinnon one year said, I haven't won squat in 9 years, and it's got to change and it's got to get better. Ultimately, when you do get smoked like that, there's nothing that you can really say, CJ. But the way it comes off is it just didn't matter that much. Like William Nylander came out today and he goes, it was a crappy game, that's it. And how is a fan supposed to react to that? I don't know. When you just toss out, it was a crappy game. When the captain says we had too many passengers, does that mean it meant the world to them? Did you go down dying to win that game when your captain says there was too many passengers? Not everyone was on the same page. The other team was hungrier than us. The other team's been to 2 straight finals. Why were they hungrier? Those are the things that I'm talking about.
Right, and that's where it feels like it's between the ears, honestly. I mean, look, they need, if we're doing this again next year when it comes playoff time, they need a team that can play on the inside of the ice more dogs, I guess, seems to be the word that's going around these days. But they need maybe a little bit more of a fight in the sort of overall style of play. Obviously, not every player in your lineup is built in that certain way. I mean, you want different elements in your lineup, but I don't have any, I feel like I don't have answers for their lack of answers, I guess is probably the best way to put it. And I don't believe they don't care, though. I mean, that's I would draw a line there. I'm not necessarily saying that's what you're getting at, but you're almost talking about the disconnect between what people feel and what the players feel. I think everyone feels a lot of disappointment around the Leafs, quite honestly, to sort of put themselves in position. I mean, they, tons of respect, obviously, for the Florida Panthers. They may win another cup this year, but the Leafs, I think they let them off the hook in that series myself.
Well, here's the thing.
With the way Game 3 went and all that stuff,
Well, sorry to interrupt, CJ, but the one thing I disagree with, and it's not with you, but it's what came out of them, for them saying it's between the ears. I disagree with that. You just said, well, guys who are willing to do whatever it takes. I just don't, Mitch Marner wasn't going to run anybody through the boards. William Nylander wasn't going to. Like, to me, they've got 4 players that play the same way. And all 4 of those guys don't have that, the nature that
they don't have the killer instinct,
like
DNA.
Like to run.
That's the big thing.
So
Because they talked about
that's not a mental thing.
Yeah.
No.
That's
they
a
talked
lack
about
of
it years
ability.
ago, where we got to find that killer instinct, and we think our players have it. We don't have to go out and find it. Well, they don't.
Yeah,
they
it's
do not
9
have
years
it.
now. It's not going to change.
That's
now.
my point. Like, I understand there's a mental block from showing up potentially in big games. I think that's what they're pointing to, and I think that's what you're saying, CJ. But in the end, I look at loose puck battles. I look at determination on 50-50 battles. I look at taking a chunk of your opponent. I didn't witness that from the top players. I witnessed, they've got skill. They've got lots of good things that they can bring to the table. But it was the surrounding cast that needed to do it, because Florida had it. That third line took a piece of anybody that they could. Again, it's not Barkov and Reinhart, but it certainly was Bennett. It was Marchand. It was Tkachuk. It was, right down the lineup, where I'm looking at that Leafs lineup and it's like, okay, Max Domi, dumb penalty again. Well, show me how much you care. It's a dumb penalty, and Matthew Tkachuk draws you into it. It's not about the show. It's about actually executing it. And they didn't do it. And I don't think that's between the ears. I just don't think that particular group is capable of doing it when the chips are down. And it was evident, games 5 and 7.
Right. This is the ultimate if era of Leafs hockey, because I feel like you can do this. But, I mean, even their lower down the lineup guys like Scott Laughton and Steven Lorentz had breakaways in the first period. By no means am I hanging the loss on those players, but you just wonder, like, what if one of those ends up in the net, or heaven forbid, even both of them? Maybe, like, it's a crazy game, this sport, and the Leafs, to me, they're just overdue for the change at the top of the roster, and it's being brought to them this time around versus them initiating it. It seems, but you can only watch so many of these games go the same way, and we have for years and years and years. It's hard to draw new conclusions from any of it, other than they got to change something up there.
Yeah. What about all the way up at the top? What is your read on Brendan Shanahan and what's going to happen with the Leafs brass the rest of the week?
Well, obviously, when you got a president 11 years in, and the customers are as angry as they are, and the guy doesn't have a contract beyond the season, it doesn't line up very well for Brendan Shanahan. But, it's a big decision for Keith Pelley to make in terms of just what the structure is going to look like going forward. I mean, I don't know how it's going to go down just yet, and I think they're still working through that themselves. But, clearly I don't think it would be a surprise if they decided to move in a different direction away from Shanahan. I think what the Leafs need to get right in their front office is maybe doing some streamlining. It's a big front office, might be the biggest in the league in terms of just the sheer number of people that work there. Some of it's a bit of a Frankenstein front office left over with people from the Dubas era, and obviously some additions that have happened since Brad Treliving took over 2 years ago. And so, I think when the dust settles here, whether it's a week or so or a couple days, I think you're going to see some people lose their jobs and ultimately try to get to the most functional version of the decision-making tree they can, because no pun intended by calling it the tree, but I mean, that's where the change has to happen. That's where the plan for this off season happens. That's where the what's next, really goes down in terms of if this team can come back better and find a way to get the job done next year.
With Chris Johnston, what is your read on this Austin Matthews injury scenario, where he will not, for the second straight year, will not reveal what happened? Was somewhat taken aback by the idea that someone asked him why he won't reveal. He just pushed back immediately and said, because I don't have to. Why do you think he's going down this road when so many players in the league kind of take it almost as like an honor to reveal what they play through?
I don't know exactly what's going through his mind there. I mean, take 2 other examples today. Chris Tanev missed some time in March. He mentioned the very, very specific nature of his injury. I'm not going to botch what it was, but it's something to do with his sternum. even Anthony Stolarz just came out and said, yeah, I had a concussion in the first round. Matthew Knies, it should be noted, didn't want to get into what hampered him, the injury he suffered in Game 6. So I guess there's a matter of personal preference there. As for Matthews and the season, I think if you're going to second guess anything, or if there's a lesson to be learned from it, is he probably shouldn't have started the year playing after he got injured in training camp. I think that's probably, he was maybe pushing through at that point in time. He'd just been named captain, didn't want to start that tenure, I guess, sitting out games. But, it was something that he fought all year long. And I still don't know exactly what the injury is. So I don't want to act like I'm secretly hiding it here and trying to be evasive. I don't know the nature of it. I do think that at times, though, this season he felt very good, including in March and into the playoffs. And then, we saw him miss, I think, two times, even just in that playoff run where he had to sit out skates in days where normally he'd be on the ice. So, obviously it's something he's got to dial in, but when we don't have the full picture of what it might be, it's hard to get in on the details of what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So the elephant in the room is Marner and Tavares in particular. What's your read on how these two play out? Mitch Marner, John Tavares over the next 6 weeks.
Tavares is probably the easier read. He's made it abundantly clear, really, every minute he's been a Maple Leaf, that he doesn't want to play anywhere else, and every chance he's had, even coming off the season he had in the regular season, I don't get the sense he's looking to use his leverage. I believe his side will work with the Leafs to find a deal that makes sense. And so, and I believe the Leafs do have interest in keeping him, assuming that number is okay. So, usually when you have two sides in that mind frame heading into a negotiation, it's probably going to end up well. And so, I think it does make sense to keep Tavares around.
Why?
Obviously. Well, I'll tell you why. Because he's still a pretty good player, and his cap hit is going to be cut in half or more. So, I think that he's transitioning to a different part of his career. He wants to be here, and if he's willing to sign for, something that is, below market value or in that range, then why would you move on for him? If you him out the door, I mean, the downside of this summer, the upside is everybody in the league gets cap space. The downside is everyone's going to be bidding players' numbers up. I think you're going to see contracts explode with the next round of free agents.
My pushback on that, CJ, is his performance in the last 3 games where he barely touched the puck and didn't make a play. Is it going to be that much more easy to take next year because he's making half the money?
I think if you're reasonable about where he's playing in the lineup at that time, it is. I mean, if he could be a third liner by that stage. And, I mean, where else are you going to get a center? I mean, Sam Bennett is a free agent. Like, what's he going to cost?
I don't know, man. All I know from playing in the league is a guy that was the captain and who's been a superstar basically his whole career. He just comes back into the lineup or into the locker room, and he's still like a powerful personality in there. And we've talked about their disposition and how they all are, and they're similar. They've got to bring different personalities into that locker room. End of story.
Yeah, well, I would agree with that. Although I think what you're saying about like transitioning would be like the Spezza, Marlowe, Thornton role.
Jamie Benn.
Ben, I guess, but Bennett's still working. But my point is like those guys went somewhere else to do that.
Right.
Like if you're transitioning into I'm a veteran and I've done it all, I've seen it all. I think what O says rings true. Like John, it doesn't matter what his cap hit is. He's still John Tavares. Like he's still, I don't know.
He's still going to be wanting to be on the first power play unit, and I want my cookies, and I want this, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. This is what makes it complicated.
I guess, and I guess we won't know until what CJ you're saying, and what's the alternative? If you're going to spend, we'll just call it $5 million. I don't know what he would make. Who's making $5 million to be your either third line center or your 7-8 player? That's really what we're talking about, because who's out there that could play that role? Maybe it's Matt Duchene.
We don't know.
Matt Duchene is the only other obvious one, but isn't he essentially John Tavares, but maybe not even quite as good?
Well, he might be a different player, though. I think that's what what we're talking about is just sometimes different is better, because we have a sample size and a large sample size of what they've had right now. So you're right. Matt Duchene is a different player. Now, I would argue Duchene's a better player in certain things than Tavares, and others, like Tavares is, I mean, they're pretty damn close on draws. Both of them are elite, centermen as far as draws. But I think Duchene's a better skater than him right now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He has been his whole career.
So just in the end, CJ, I think what they're saying is if you can bring back somebody or bring in somebody who's different, who might complement the team in a different way, that's what you might be looking to do just because it's a different look.
Well,
but, I mean, I just think you need someone to score goals. I mean, he's got, 30 goals each of the last 3 years anyway, Tavares? I mean,
yeah.
Who knows? I guess this is interesting. I thought this was going to be the easy. This was going to be the easy call. I mean, the Marner one's a little more different, but
yeah. Let's get to Marner here. Let's tell us, I guess, from Marner's perspective. Like, do you think the door is completely closed, that he just doesn't want to be here anymore? Do you buy that he hasn't put time and thought into his future?
The biggest question for me is, can the Leafs do anything to crack that door open? That I think it's mostly closed, if not entirely closed. I think certainly Mitch is of a mind that, he waited this out. He played. Look, some guys are afraid to play out a contract season because of things that can go wrong, their performance, injuries, whatever. He did take some risk in a sense by not signing an extension. Had his best ever regular season, 102 points. As an NHL player, and so I think that he's of the mind that this could be a good time to look elsewhere, see what the market's out there for him. Very lucrative, all those things. So I think he has one foot out the door. What I don't know and what I think we'll get clarity on in the coming weeks is whether anything can be said or done, and whether the Leafs even want to do that. I'm not even sure of that at this point. But can anything be said to make him want to stay? Does he have a second thought? Does the dust settle on the season? I mean, that's the unknown for me. But as we sit here now, he didn't want to sign an extension during the year. The management approached him before the deadline about moving him, and obviously didn't move on. But none of this suggests that they're going to sign an extension with this player, and I think he's going to become one of the bigger free agents the last 5-6 years on July 1st and sign elsewhere. That's where it's all pointing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, that'll be as massive of a change as you can get outside of Matthews.
It will. It will
Marner,
be. And then it's what you do if he doesn't sign with that cap space to make your team better or different. That's the biggest thing. It's not. It may not make you better in on the right wing area, but it's going to make you different with that money that you are going to use.
Yeah, you got your goalies locked up, your defensemen locked up, right? Like,
let's work with really rough numbers. If you remove the $11 million that each Tavares and Marner make this year, you're at $22 million. Let's say you pay Tavares $6. That's maybe a bit high for O. Doesn't want him there at all. Let's say you pay Nye $7 just for fun.
Yep.
So you're at $13 million. So that still leaves $9 million to essentially use on a couple players. I mean, it's not awful. You're not getting one player, I should be clear, up top that replaces Mitch Marner. Like, that's just not happening. But maybe you can add two players that do other things, that can play top nine anyway, and use that cap space to do it. I mean, I think that's what the Leafs are probably going to be faced with, when push comes to shove this summer.
All right, CJ, we'll get you out of here with our question of the day. Something to chew on, brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar this playoff season. Boston Pizza is planning the parade and has a new all-star playoff menu for you to enjoy. For pizza, pints, and puck drops, visit your local Boston Pizza today. If this is the end of the Shanahan era, was the Shanaplan a success or a failure?
You got to go failure. I got to go failure. Lots of good things happened, but that plan was designed to bring a Stanley Cup to Toronto, and they didn't get closer than 9 wins away. So I don't see how that's anything but a failure, even though I will acknowledge it's not saying there's a lot of good times here the last 11 years too.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
The reason, if they won a cup, the Shanaplan would reign on for much longer.
Oh, of course. I mean, it would be the most glorified plan in the history of the city. Right. But, that also puts it into perspective. Like, we're talking about them needing 9 more wins
Yeah, the
Like-
win would have put them halfway there.
And that's kind of what Marchand was talking about the other day.
Yeah,
and
he's
even
saying-
he's like, this is the second round, guys.
Yeah.
Like, you think this is pressure? Wait till you get to the Cup final, and you're playing Game 7.
But those guys were
Like, that's
it was kind of tongue in cheek, going like, "I'm having to talk about this."
Yeah, like,
We're in
hey,
second
guys.
round.
Well, that was something I noticed the other night, and I tweeted that out. Like, when the buzzer went, the Panthers, they reacted like they had just finished Game 12 of the regular season.
Yeah,
Like, a few guys went over to Bob. Hey, good job, Bob. Like, if it wasn't for the line, they had to do the handshake. They would have
went
just
right
been
off
like,
the ice.
we'll just, see you later. Like, we're on our way to Carolina. The birds starting to
and
starting to heat
they
up.
packed for.
Yes,
for
of
the
course
road.
they packed for Carolina. But it was more because of the way the game. They knew by the second intermission this game's over, and certainly by halfway through the third.
Yeah,
And I know people say, "Well, that's what winners do," and I get it, and I appreciate that. But I was like, it's Game 7, and there was nothing,
Throwing
like
their
no celebrating, no
sticks in the air,
screaming,
yeah,
nothing. It was just like, hey, Bob, good stuff, man. All right, let's go, Carolina. We're out of here.
Yeah.
Crazy, man, crazy.
yeah.
All right.
I think Matthews, he said something along the lines today. We were close to being close, and that about sums it up, right? I mean, they were almost there to being almost there,
Yeah, I don't know, man.
which is still a long way away in the business of trying to win a Stanley Cup.
Yep.
That hasn't been touched on a lot. Like, second round.
Yeah. That's it.
Not even halfway there.
That's the truth, man. It's just getting going. Like, these guys, there's another month to go.
Yeah.
A lot more games. All right, CJ. Good stuff, pal. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
All right, talk to you soon.
There's Chris Johnston joining us. And as we know, it's happened again. Every year, it's the same old depressing story for Leaf fans. That's why TSN 1050 wants to give you a leaf of absence. We're sending you and 3 of your equally miserable buddies to Cobble Beach for a rejuvenating 2-night retreat in a private cottage with 3 rounds of award-winning golf. All you have to do is text RETREAT along with your name and city to 105050. So text the word RETREAT along with your name and city to 105050 and vent about your heartbreaking experiences as a Leaf fan. And next Monday on First Up, we will be calling one defeated fan with some much-needed relief. I like that. Cobble's a great place.
Yeah,
Great place.
sounds like it. I mean,
Oh, it's outstanding spot. All right, Gio coming up. Best bets later in the hour. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on YouTube Live.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
You flip the script for the hell of it. Addicted to betrayal, but you're relevant.
All right, best bets later in the hour. Powered by FanDuel. We got the final 4 teams. Man, it was tough for the Leafs on Sunday. Tough for Winnipeg. Shout out to Mark Scheifele and his family, of course, his dad passing away, and heartbreaking news. And then the idea that Mark plays, he stays in Dallas. And
Shout out to
of course
Scott
he
Arniel.
scores.
Like, left the building and went back to the hotel. Like, just
So tough, man.
Yeah, that's
Such
the
a
whole
tough
organization
situation.
did a great job rallying around him. My heart went out to him. Like, this is a personal thing, even the game aside. But he was having a game too. He scores
the goal.
It was like not a storybook, but it's like, didn't Brett Favre play when his father passed?
Yeah,
And
Monday Night
had a great
Football against
game
the
and all of that.
Raiders.
And Scheifele
Great
was having
that
a game, and then there was 0 penalties. And then
Yeah, they call that.
they had-
Now, it was I thought
they
it
had to
should have
call.
been a penalty
It actually
shot.
should have been a penalty shot, but either way, they had to make that call, and I was sick to my stomach. And I was happy for Dallas, obviously. But I was sick to my stomach that it was on that Scheifele penalty. And watching Adam Lowry afterwards in tears, like, he's an unbelievable leader, unbelievable person, teammate. He goes and gets Scheifele from the penalty box. He says on the podium, like, we wanted to kill it off so badly for him and we failed him. Like, that was just raw emotion.
Yeah, that was
It was
a wild
awful,
scene,
like
man.
awful to. And again, now, Scheifele has to. He flew back immediately. I believe Tom
Yeah.
Gagliardi got him.
That's
in a
what was,
private jet.
I think, being reported, which is
Yeah.
an incredible gesture as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got Dallas, Edmonton, and we've got Florida, Carolina. Florida, Carolina,
Yeah.
starting tonight. Here's our boy Mark Giordano. How you doing, Gio?
Guys, how's it going?
Good.
Gio, you're the perfect guy to ask and have on today, because I'd like to ask you, just out of the game, and you were in that dressing room, after what you've witnessed watching, Like, how would you assess it? Because the assessment hasn't been great from us because it was a tough watch. But how do you assess what you watched on Sunday night?
Yeah, so obviously, oh man, obviously Game 5 was just a really bad game, and the boys took a lot of heat, and then went to Florida. And after Game 6, it was like, okay, that's the hurdle they had to get over, and that's how I felt about it. I thought they were going to come out with a really strong game, but I think for me, what shocked me the most was the start, was the 24 attempts to nothing in the first 10 minutes. I thought they looked really tight, really tentative. And then I did think the last 10 minutes of the first, like, you get 2 breakaways, you get some chances, you get some life. And I honestly, going into the second period, I didn't see it coming. I thought they were going to take over a little bit. I thought, okay, now they're like, we stayed in this game. We finally got through a little hurdle here, a little hurdle there. But I really just felt like when Jones scored that goal and then they scored one right after, it was like, oh no, it's happening again. It felt like that's how the mindset of the team was, is like, it's really going to happen again. And it's unfortunate. I mean, it ended up 6-1, but I'm just like, man, if they could have got a breakaway goal, or, you know, they didn't get scored on twice in a row, but it just steamrolled and snowballed. And it was like, it just felt like it was like, oh no, it's going to happen again. And they couldn't stop. Like, Florida was super aggressive. Like, Seth Jones, I think, gets lost in all this. He had a game of his life. Like, he was all over it, scored the goal. He scored another one that got disallowed. He had I think a key assist on one of them. Like, he was just all over it. But yeah, it just caught me off guard that it was like, you know, the first 10 minutes of the game caught me off guard for sure.
So basically what you're saying is they were in it and then they ultimately got crushed and caved in, and it wasn't even close. So when you talk about heat after Game 5 and obviously heat after Game 7, would you say any of that criticism would be unfair or taken too far, or are people just nuts?
Oh no, I think the way they lost, the criticism is not unfair. I mean, the guys know that deep down, everyone knows it. It's, you know, it's the messages in the media, you're going to protect yourself and your teammates, but guys know, like, it's just at the end of the day, you just got to be like, listen, you know, we screwed that one, and it is what it is. Like, you know, the criticism's coming now. I think for all the players, it was just one of those moments where it was like they were just caught saying, oh man, here we go again. And it just snowballed and it got worse and worse. Game 5 was bad, and that was right up there too. But I mean, the guys know what's coming from the media. The guys know what's coming from the fans. And I think, you know, a lot of people get frustrated with their responses in the media, but they're just trying to protect themselves and each other at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, Gio, I'm curious, you know, if you ever were in a scenario in your career where you reflected on what was going on, like, during an intermission. Like, I'm guessing every intermission's kind of similar. Guys have their routines, right? Some guys take everything off. Some guys stay in their equipment. Some guys go and get treatment. Some guys tape their stick, whatever they do. But, like, would you ever be in a scenario where you'd look back and think, like, what happened in that first intermission? Like, how did they escape, feel like, okay, it's all good, and then play 20 minutes where they just get caved in and it's over? Like, at any point in your career, did you have any of those kind of reflecting moments where you're like, what happened in the room in between periods?
Yeah, like, usually what would have been going on in there, they would have been like, hey, boys, like, we have not been at our best. Let's go out and get going, get our feet moving, get our bodies going. That's all the things. All those things would have been said. Like, let's get going. We got lucky to get out of that period 0-0, whatever you want to call it. But what happened was Florida came out even more aggressive. It seemed like Seth Jones is up in the play on that 2-on-1. He's playing forward basically there. Florida's just pressing, and they scored. And when they scored, it wasn't even the first goal. It was the second one for me, where they bang, bang, and it was just like, you could see the guys. I think the state of their mind went from, we're in this game, we're still tight, stick with it, to, oh no, we're going to lose again. Like, we're not going to get through this again. And I think it just snowballed from that point on.
So at what point you're watching it. You obviously know that group. At what point could anything have been done? Like what, in an alternate universe, after that second goal or even the third, like, O was talking about in the 4:00 hour, it's rare that a head coach has to have a meltdown on the bench in a game 7. Like,
I don't know,
it's
never happened before. To be
well, I mean, yeah, we'd have to look back on tapes, but and you could see the frustration with Chief because he was yelling at the bench. Mitch Marner's yelling at the bench. Like, in an alternate universe, is there something that could have been said or done on the bench, or maybe a play that you would have liked to see that could have stopped the bleeding or maybe jarred the momentum?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Noodles. The thing that I've been thinking about, like watching that series unfold, I thought Toronto obviously was really good at the start of this series, but I think Florida turned into super aggressive, like more aggressive than usual down the walls. And the one thing I kept saying was, like, how many times did the puck get stuffed on the wall and turned over, or like the D-man on Florida was pinching the winger off, and he didn't even have time to make a play. Like, I was thinking, the one adjustment maybe I would have been trying to preach is, let's get some like high flips through the middle, or you got to make the play through the middle and try and hold their D in between the dots. Their D were up in the play all the time in the neutral zone. They're stepping up outside of the dots and cutting those passes up, those direct passes. Like, I would have been either high off the glass and get it behind their D somehow, or like high flips. But I mean, it's easy to say now looking back. So going into game 7, the Leafs would have been like, okay, game 5, the coaching staff, the players would all have been like, game 5 was a one-off. We came back, got back to our game in game 6. We played well. We shut them out. We didn't give them much. We had a great start. Like, they would have been like, game 5 was a one-off. Okay, the series has been tight either way. Now here we go. We're going to get them again in game 7. We're going to play the exact same way and get them. And what happened was Florida just, in my opinion, played a great game. And once they got again, I'll keep saying it, once they got those couple goals and the Leafs were behind, it's not like Florida said, okay, we're going to lay off and start playing defense here. They went almost the other way and played more aggressive. And before you know it, it was game over pretty quick, right?
Absolutely. With Mark Giordano. Gio, you would have done these locker cleanouts, a lot every year of your career. And by the time you got to Toronto, you're a veteran guy. You would have spoken. You did speak with the media. But I'm curious, when you were, when you're the captain in Calgary, when you're winning a Norris, when you're the man in Calgary, and okay, the season's over. I'm walking into this media presser. How did you prepare?
They're the worst.
Yeah,
they're the worst. Yeah, they're the worst. Yeah, I mean, you just feel like you're walking in there and you're thinking about, how am I going to say all the right things and show appreciation and show that you're devastated and all that without coming across as, and I don't know how to say it, but yeah, you're just going, those days are the worst. You really don't have, like in Calgary, I remember the one year we finished first in the conference and we lost in 5 games to Colorado. And it was like we all came in the room and like you almost can't even look each other in the face because you feel so like you let your buddies down, you let each other down so much. So I can imagine what the guys are feeling. Yeah, I've been through it a lot in my career too. Unfortunately, like it's a brutal day when you come in and because they had a great year. They had the formula they thought that was going to lead them to the next level. And I really do. It sucks for these guys because I really do believe for a lot of this season it was the right formula. They were playing different hockey. They're playing more defensive, and now the way they lost in Game 7, being a lopsided game, 6-1, it's gonna come down on them, and they know that. They know what's coming. Everyone knows what's coming, but it doesn't change the fact that you walk in there and it's a brutal day.
With Mark Giordano, so we got it. There's a couple of big UFAs coming up. Obviously, we know Marner, Tavares. When you were in their situation, when your contract was up, how would you play out, the next 2 weeks? Like if you were in their role and, you're trying to determine what your future is going to be, you're trying to figure out how the team feels, maybe what could be available to you on July 1st. Like, what is the process that you would go through if you were a free agent?
Yeah, well, the thing is first you have to decide whether you want to stay, right? Like you talk to your family and you feel the fit's right for you, the situation's right for you. But the biggest thing for me too, whenever I see high-end players like Johnny and Mitch get to free agency, you know that there's a lot of people pushing I don't know if the agents are pushing or other people like family members or friends and all people around you, like, you've already played your last game of the season. So either way, it's not changing. Like, it's not changing your contract when July 1st comes along. So a lot of guys will say, I just want to see what's out there, right? Either way. Mm-hmm. And I never really got to this point in my career. I was always a guy who I liked having the stability and signing and having a contract, a contract in place before I got to free agency. But yeah, for sure, it's hard. It's going to be hard on the Leafs because they're two quality players who a lot of teams are going to want, and we'll see. You gotta have both the want from the guy to come back, and the team's got to want to re-sign the guy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have a lot of that over the next 2 months.
I mean, in Geo too, you look at how noisy the market is. I mean, you heard. I don't know if you saw the comments of Matthew Tkachuk or Brad Marchand or Paul Maurice and, saying how noisy the market was. I mean, you look at what happened in Game 7, there was certainly disappointment. How do you deal with that? Like, if you're a player, how do you process all of that and, head that into the off season and trying to reset, coming back next year even better, or trying to build off of what you did this year?
Well, Nunos, you can't look at it like everyone's out to get you all the time. Like, no one's out to get anyone. I think for me personally, I played in Toronto, and I played in Calgary, which is another great Canadian market. Like, nobody's out to get you. The media, though, in Toronto and the fans in Toronto are really in tune to how the game of hockey is played and how, like, the little things. And I mean, if you blow it, you blow it. You gotta know people are going to come down on you a little bit, but that comes with the territory. I'll tell you what, though, if you win in Toronto or you win in Calgary, you win in the Canadian market, you're king of that city. So it goes both ways. You got to nobody's out to get anybody, though. You gotta know that as a player. Nobody's trying to come down on anyone harder than anyone else. It's just, there's more media here. There's more coverage. Fans know the game more than other fans in other cities, and that's not a knock on anyone, but that's how it is. As far as like Chucky and Marshy, and I don't know what they said, but like, I take everything Chucky says with a little grain of salt. He might be screwing with the boys a bit, but I'll go look at the comments.
That's
we said that earlier.
Maurice, Marchand, and Tkachuk, they're punking it. Like, they're punking this guy. Keep it the same. You guys are great. It's just a tough market because next year we're going to come in here and punch your face in.
Exactly. They know exactly what they're doing, man.
Yeah, I'd like to know. I'd like to know what they were saying during the series to the boys. Not you know what I mean. Not after they beat you. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. All right, Gio. Well, we always appreciate you doing this, buddy. Enjoy the rest of the playoffs. We'll have you on before it comes to an end. Thanks for doing this.
Okay, boys. Have a good one.
There he is, Mark Giordano. That's
how about him laughing?
Cool insight.
Going, yeah, what did Chucky like? Does he know? He played with Chucky. He knows Chucky, right?
Like, you got to consider the messenger, man. Matthew Tkachuk is the last guy you can trust.
He was asked after the Tampa series about the rivalry, and he goes, "It's kind of not even a rivalry anymore."
Yeah, like, wow. We just kind of dummy them every time we play them.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to consider the source here.
That's fair.
All right, Best Bets coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Now back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Today's Best Bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds in the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I'm on the under tonight in the hockey game. Svechnikov, 3+ shots on goal. Seth Jarvis, anytime point, plus 463. Got to get it tonight if you're Carolina.
What about what Doogie just...
Doogie had he had it going to overtime and then Carolina in overtime.
It's too complicated.
It's too...
Another little nugget for Doogie. If Hayes didn't find that piece of paper at the very end, you should just run out the door and go right to your car.
Would have got a nasty eye for that one.
Never, Doogie. There's a lot of paper here, but it's on me to have it organized. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. From puck drop to the final horn, every Stanley Cup playoff game is available on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly. 18 plus, physically located in Ontario. All right. So we talked about the PGA Championship, of course. Scheffler. Right. And just the whole vibe, man. It was a bad build-up, bad weather. It didn't seem to be a lot of people there.
Other than day one when there was rain.
No, I know, but I'm talking like the practice rounds and all that kind of stuff. It was just like
a bad vibe.
It wasn't a good tournament. Like,
dude, if you looked in the crowd too, Carolina dudes, they all wear the same gear.
Yes. You get the khaki
shorts,
polo shirt.
Like a light blue polo shirt, a brown belt, and a hat, and they rock New Balance, and that's their gear.
Yes. Yeah. Or the loafer shoe. They like a loafer.
Yes.
Coverage of the PGA Championship on OverDrive. Brought to you by Subaru. Hurry into the all-in-one event for great offers and experience all the features that come standard in a Subaru. So we've been up on YouTube Live all day on the TSN.
That's what we are now. We're
channel.
YouTube stars.
We're YouTube content creators now.
Creators.
So we're going to be, every single show is going to be streaming live on YouTube. You can find us on TSN, of course. You can find us podcasted all over the place. Listen to us on TSN Radio. So we're just expanding that much more in terms of how you can access the show.
We're on YouTube. Can we start to swear? Because that's
a good question.
I don't think there's anything wrong with swearing. Like, who cares? It's just part of the, like, people swear.
That's the next step, I think, for us.
Yeah, you think that's where we're going next?
I don't think we can go full swearing.
You can't go, but
we need to be a little bit
careful. There's a few words we might be able to get. Luke always swears on air.
Yeah, Luke does generally. Luke claims he found a bowl in Windsor that said Hayes is a fraud.
My partsy. I would like to challenge you, me and my partsy versus you and Al's brother before this.
Done. I was talking about it today.
A football challenge.
We want to play football or we're playing golf?
Golf.
Done. Flag football and golf.
No
Al's
flag
brother
football.
Can't play golf.
I was talking to our boy Danny Quinn this morning about bringing Luke out. He said, let's do it. Bring the O-Dog, bring Luke out. Let's play.
Let's do it.
I saw the head coach of the Spitfires, too, today.
Nice.
Great guy, awesome guy. The Midwest, down in southwestern Ontario, the Sun Belt.
Love it.
Of Ontario. It's great to see those guys. Talking Windsor. Quinner loves that place.
That's great.
Loves it. All right, boys. Great stuff. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web, and YouTube. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.